Hey everyone. I hope you guys are doing all right today. We got a couple of stories that I want to bring to my audience. I wanted to do a really quick live on this, and then I'll be talking about this whole situation in Minnesota. And this officer, this killer, this this officer, this killer cop has resigned um, in the wake of the murder of Dante Wright, Minnesota. Um, I heard the police chief also resigned too, and maybe that was a good idea. Maybe it was a really good idea because, yesterday the police chief walked away during a live news conference, and it was pretty obvious at that point then that he maybe didn't have the right spirit or heart to lead any sort of investigation. Um, and since he wants to be all up in his fifis about it, it's whatever. But I want to talk about this breaking story case. Hey, Heaven Sent, how are you? I want to talk about this breaking story that is coming out of California. Um, and listen, I don't know why. Actually, let me check something really quick. Yeah, okay. All right. You should be good, Heaven Sent. Okay, now listen. This story has been going on for over 2 decades, and many of you have heard the name Kristin Smart before. And so I want to talk a little bit about this story and kind of bring y'all back into the loop of this whole situation, this whole story. Now, Kristin Smart, um, when her disappearance occurred back in the late 90s, I'll get the exact year here in a minute. I know it was about 25 years ago when she disappeared. It was during a wave of a couple of different disappearances that had happened during that period of time. Do you guys remember Natalie Holloway? You guys remember Natalie Holloway, right? Aruba, the high school vacation to Aruba that went absolutely crazy wrong, and Johan Vandersloot, who is now in a prison in South America, pretty much admitted that he had a hand in the death of Natalie Holloway on the island of Aruba during a graduation trip that the high schooler had taken. And so it's just like during that period of time, I just remember all these different stories, and Kristin Smart was one of these stories. Hey, Lisa, how you doing? Okay, so I'm gonna play this. Before I play, before I play this article, or I guess this video, this press conference, they call them pressers. Let me show you guys a photo of Kristin Smart because it may actually bring back some memories to you. This woman here, Kristin Smart, college student from Caltech. Um, so this is Kristin Smart, and two people have been arrested in the death of Kristin Smart 25 years ago. Um, it was early one Saturday morning, nearly 25 years ago, when Kristin Smart went to a party, and she was never seen again. She was never seen again, and her body has never been found, even to this day. Well, Paul Flores and his father have been arrested for Kristin Smart's death. Paul Flores was the last man. He was actually the last person, I should get that correct. He was the last person and a classmate who was actually seen with Kristin Smart. And despite multiple rounds of interrogations over the last, few decades, searches using radar, cadaver dogs, Kristin Smart's body has never been found. Now, they had described this man as a suspect for quite a number of years, but Today, detectives arrested him, 44-year-old Paul Flores, on suspicion of murder. They booked him into the San Luis County Jail. They also arrested his father, Ruben Flores, age 80, on suspicious of being an accessory after the fact. Now, my understanding is they had some major development. My understanding is there is a direct piece, a physical piece of evidence that links Paul to Kristin. Flores and his family has steadfastly maintained his innocence. His mother told a television reporter even last month, quote, "We have no responsibility for her disappearance and what happened to that young woman. She was 19 years old. She was a freshman. She vanished during Memorial Day weekend, 1996. Like I said, she'd went to a party, and she was walking about the 10-minute walk back to her dormitory with two other students. When the students later told the police, Paul Flores appeared and then promised to see her back to her room. Kristin Smart was never seen again. As I said, they had suspected Paul Flores for a number of years. I will not in this one, having said not in this one. This is just a really quick one here. I'll be back and we'll definitely do that. I want you guys to check out this press conference from authorities out of California in regards to this disappearance of Kristin Smart. It's a day that the family I know has been waiting for a long time. Y'all check this out.
We're beginning here today because this is where it all began on the campus of Cal Poly University. On May 25th, 1996, this was the last place that Kristin Smart was seen alive. It has been 24, almost 25 years since Kristin went missing. 24 years without a resolution until today. I'm here this afternoon to announce the arrest of Paul Flores for the murder of Kristin Smart and the arrest of his father, Ruben Flores, as an accessory to the murder. I want to start just with a little timeline for those who may not follow this completely. So how did we get here? It's been a long process. Kristin Smart was a 19-year-old freshman Cal Poly student in May of 1996. She was last seen on May 25th of 1996 at approximately 2 a.m. near the intersection of Perimeter and Grand Avenue, which is right over my left shoulder, as she walked home from an off-campus party. Kristin was last seen with Paul Flores, also a 19-year-old freshman that walked her home from the party. Kristin never returned to her dorm room that night and has not been seen or heard from since that time. She was reported missing to the Cal Poly Police Department on May 28, 1996. Cal Poly Police handled the initial investigation into her disappearance with the assistance of investigators from the San Luis Obispo County District Attorney's Office. On June 26, 1996, about a month later, the San Luis Sheriff's Office assumed the lead investigation in the case. We have actively investigated the case since that time. We have received assistance from the FBI, California Department of Justice, numerous other law enforcement agencies throughout the state of California and actually out of the state of California. I introduced Detective Cole for a reason. About 4 years ago, the Board of Supervisors, and I think the chair of the board, Lynn Compton, is here, granted a request that I had for a unsolved cold case detective. Many of our cold cases are actually assigned to our detectives in addition to their normal caseload, and Kristin's was one of those cases. Kristin's was one of the cases that I targeted for this position, and after granting that position, Detective Cole assumed that position and has been working on Kristin's case since then. Throughout our investigation, Paul Flores has remained a person of significant interest. There's been some discussion of what is a person of interest versus a suspect, and it's really a matter of terminology. When a crime occurs, everybody involved in that area could be a person of interest until they're ruled no longer of interest, either through alibi, through witness, through physical evidence. But Paul remained as a person of interest, and as the case progressed, became a suspect and the prime suspect in the case. So I became sheriff in 2011 and did a complete and requested a complete review of all the physical evidence that had ever been taken in the missing person case. In late 2016, we discovered additional evidence that confirmed that Paul was the suspect in the disappearance. In 2019, we interviewed several witnesses that had not been previously interviewed. And I'll say some of that information came to light through the podcast that many of you are familiar with, that was produced and eventually led to our interviewing that witness. And with the knowledge of the discovered of new evidence, new witnesses, sheriff's detectives secured a court order authorizing the interception and monitoring of Paul Flores' cell phone and text messages. This is one of many things that have been done over the last 10 years. In February of 2020, detectives served search warrants at the home of Paul Flores, as well as his sister, mother, and father, all simultaneously last year. Physical evidence recovered during these searches led to the service of additional search warrant at Paul Flores' residence in April of last year. During the search warrant, detectives recovered evidence related to the murder of Kristin Smart. In March of this year, detectives served another search warrant in Arroyo Grande at the home of Ruben Flores, the father of Paul Flores. Additional evidence related to the Smart investigation was discovered at that time. So as a result of this evidence, a San Luis Obispo Superior Court judge signed 2 arrest warrants and 2 additional search warrants. At approximately 07:30 this morning, today, both were arrested simultaneously with a team down in San Pedro, California, and a team in Arroyo Grande, California. And they arrested Paul Flores and his father, Ruben. Paul was arrested for charge of murder with 0 bail, meaning he is unable to bail. And Ruben Flores was arrested as an accessory to murder with a bail of $250,000. We are still currently in the process of executing those search warrants. Could be there for the remainder of the day or even into tomorrow, depending on what they find.
Okay, so now I'm going to make y'all's night. When you get an opportunity, go check out the podcast that the sheriff was talking about. This is a podcast called Your Own Backyard. And last year, the creator of this podcast, matter of fact, I heard that he just did like a some sort of a podcast where he did some sort of meet and greet and answered questions about this whole case. But understand that this individual, this is their website, this is the podcast that sort of broke this case back open. There was a 48 hours episode that premiered, and you can find these podcasts on Apple or Spotify. We can see the probably one of my favorite ones was this one, the 16-hour gap, where they go into great detail about where Paul Flores was over the Memorial Day weekend of 1996. That would have been a 3-day weekend. Chris scours the Smart family's notebooks to find forgotten witnesses and leads. Well, it's obvious that this podcast led to some additional findings, and it broke this case wide open. There is Paul Flores. Again, Paul Flores and his father have both been arrested for the murder, for a murder charge and an accessory after the fact charge. So this will be very interesting as the weeks go by. Hopefully more information will come out, and most of all, more important than anything, The family just wants to bury their little girl. I'll catch y'all next time.